Pain is a universal truth. So if you're in pain, you're going to address the pain or it'll kill you. I remind people that it's easier to sell an aspirin than a vitamin. If you don't charge enough, you can't deliver the service that your customers need, want, and expect. We must deliver a powerful message in a powerful manner. We don't want to convince 100 people 10% of the way. I want to convert 10 people to 100% of the way. When you know you've got your bills covered, whether you get out of bed or not, it's empowering. And my dad always says, if you think you're desperate, you are. So if you're running around anxious and desperate, it compounds in a negative downward spiral. Success begets success. As those wins start to compound.
Imagine as a business owner hitting the wall, not just once, but multiple times, feeling that familiar dread of stagnation where more effort just didn't translate into more growth. What if, despite those recurring plateaus, you broke free and built a business that delivered nearly miraculous growth and a consistent, predictable income that provides true freedom? Welcome to today's episode of Your Business Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Shapiro, and my guest today is none other than the sales whisperer, Wes Schaeffer. Before Wes pivoted, he was stuck, with expenses outpacing revenue, and he found himself on the hamster wheel of constantly struggling to find new customers to support himself and his growing family. Hustling harder just wasn't working anymore, impacting everything from daily operations to his personal life. But he found a way through. Today, we're going to dive into the powerful shifts that Wes made that completely transformed his business and led him not just to more profit, but far more predictable cash flow and freedom. Let's dive in and discover how he moved beyond the hustle and built a truly abundant growth machine. Wes, welcome to the show.
That brings a little tear to my eye, man. I'm ready to listen to this episode.
Me too. So Wes, bring us back to the beginning. You've had such a great arc. We've known each other a long time, but you've been through, I think, such an interesting journey as an entrepreneur. Bring us back to where that entrepreneurial bug first bit and you got into this whole great world of business.
Man. It started in college. I was at the Air Force Academy, which is a weird place to become an entrepreneur. But I was interested in investing. I was interested in finance and whatnot. And, I wasn't studying that, but growing up, like my parents had money, then they didn't have money. And so when you do without something you previously had, then you tend to want that again. And so I was at the academy. I went there. I was recruited to play football, and I went because it was quote unquote free. They just take a pound of flesh, but I didn't have to pay any cash money. So I began researching that, looking into. Back then it's like there was really no internet. You buy a subscription to Fortune magazine, and just wait each month and read it. And then I went to Texas A&M afterwards with a bunch of other guys. And one of them was quite savvy in investing. And we would go to the library. We'd go to Texas A&M library and but I'd get these reference books off the shelves, and we were pulling up stock charts, and made my first investment in a stock, and we made a few trades. I think every one hit. I don't think we lost anything. We didn't get rich, but, made a little money. Like, oh man, this stuff works. And so I kind of gave me the bug. I owed 5 years from the academy. So just began laying the groundwork, and I knew I made plans to get out right at my 5 years and jump right into commission sales. And, that was 1997 when I got out, and then, lots of ups and downs from there, but that's how this began.
So walk us through some of the earlier businesses that, you went from, stock, working with stocks on the investment side to working as a sales rep. But, at some point you decided to hang your own shingle and go out on your own. What was that? What were those earlier businesses that really got you on this path?
Yeah, my first business was a stockbroker, and after 6 months, ended up in a 3-year arbitration with them that I eventually won. But I was unemployed when my second kid was born. Because of that wonderful joy, I became a mobile home salesman. got in the top 2% of this company, 2,200 salespeople nationwide, was given a store, and then they went bankrupt. So we're living 6 hours from family with 2 kids, 2 and under, and a third on the way. We moved to Austin. Then I got into high tech literally as the .com bubble burst. So like June of 2000, I got into high tech. And did okay. Made pretty good money, but it was a grind. Constant layoffs and reorganizations. So I was in a couple of tech firms until 2007. That brought us out here to California. But 2006, I was always still trying to grow. I invested in a course. It was a 12-week teleclass back then. I bought it in 2005. It started in early 2006, and it changed my life. There was no social media. There was no video. There was no, Facebook groups or school or anything like that. It was a PDF and a weekly call. And it changed my life. What
was that course about?
Just about sales. And it gave me a framework. Until then, I was, people say, are salespeople born or are they made? And the truth is both. I was born to be in sales, but I was also just stubborn, right? And determined. And I had a family to provide for. So I had to figure it out. And so I was making decent money as a salesman. And, I made at least $100,000 since 98, 99. But I was like, man, there's got to be something else, got to be something easier, a better way of doing this. And Steve gave me this framework. And I realized that's when I knew that, professional selling is very scientific. People look at computer science and AI and whatever. You need a good prompt. Well, the same is true with selling. And the reason people can't use AI worth of crap is because they're not good face-to-face. The computer, artificial intelligence, there's still kind of sort of some intelligence there. And so if you can't engage with a human, you can't engage with a computer, and conversely, if you can engage with a computer, insofar as can you speak its language, right? What is HTML, hypertext markup language? These are literal languages. And so if you understand the language of persuasion and connection and communication, you can get people to take the actions that you want them to take, And so when I saw that, it was like, oh, hell, man. Okay. Now I know what I'm going to do.
So Wes, I'm hearing 3 things here. One is that sales has been a common theme for you all along, from jobs to your own businesses to the sword you sharpen, right, for yourself. 2, you have excellent timing with the tech industry.
Good grief.
And 3 is this consistent investment in self, right? That you take the courses, you seek to learn, you go to the physical library and learn things earlier on. And that's where a lot of growth came from. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. You got to invest in yourself.
Always. So when you do this long enough, as you and I have been doing, plateaus aren't something that you avoid per se, right? They're coming, they're there. We expect them, and you've hit a few of these plateaus along the way. What would you say is one of the biggest plateaus that, you feel your business experienced over the years?
You and I met probably not long after I started working with Infusionsoft. And I expanded my offerings, just helping clients with a lot of their digital marketing needs, right? Helping them with their website and membership sites and all these things, as well as their marketing automation. But dude, early on, I cared more about my client success than they did quite often. So I would take on too much, and literally, wake up at 4 a.m. worried, get in, start doing stuff, staying up till midnight, grinding away. And there's an old adage that surgeons don't operate on friends and family, right? They can't be neutral. My wife and I, we just watched this series, The Pit. Have you heard of that? I think it's on HBO.
Yeah, I've seen the preview for it.
Yeah, they're ER docs in Pittsburgh, and it's intense, man. It's grueling. And, and the lead guy, he's really good. And then, a friend comes in and he overdoes it and blah, blah, blah. And it's and you can see everybody else was like, you got to let it go, man. 'Cause it's hard to be that neutral, detached third party, but that's what you need in whatever you're dealing with in life. So you get a straight shot, you get an honest perspective, right? But I would dig in, and so it sounds harsh, but it's reality. Like I had to learn to create barriers with my customers, and really set clear expectations. And it's hard because, especially dealing with small business owners, it's their baby, and nobody wants to take responsibility. It's always your fault, right? That web guy, that marketing guy, that coach, that consultant. Yeah, it was never your fault, So that doing that almost brought me down twice over the years.
How so?
I would over deliver. I would, let people scope creep come in, offer to do something for a couple of grand and do 10 grand worth of work for them. Instead of 2 grand for 2 weeks, I do take 2 grand for 12 weeks, and cause I'm just trying to make it right, trying to help them. And it's like, you got to give them some tough love, and say, here's what you get. You get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. So I don't know if you got kids.
I feel like I've told that to my kids before. Wise advice, Wes. So what was that like? You're going to bed past midnight, waking up at 4, worrying about everyone else's business, over delivering, but not making enough. What did that mean to your business?
It sucked. Everything sucked, right? Because now you're tired. You're not present with your family. You're not present physically. You're not present mentally, right? You're not doing your best work. And you're just in this constant state of worry. And, eventually something's got to give. So, you start working it out and grinding it out, really. But, again, I'm stubborn, and I figured it out, but it was a school of hard knocks.
Was it just a matter of, hustle more, smile and dial more, sleazier sales tactics?
No, it was, it's not, sleazy sales tactics don't work, right? So it's just setting clear expectations. It's understanding the value that you bring. And honestly, it's all the stuff I teach. It was just hard for me to do it for myself, because I was always, and still it's an issue with me. Like I never want somebody to say something bad about me, like go online, oh, she cheated me, overcharged me and whatever. Like I don't have any of those reviews. Right. But sometimes it's like, just take it, they're a wimp. It's like this image goes around every now and then. It's like a frame in front of a restaurant, with the chalk, says, come in and have, the worst sandwich that Jeremy S has ever had. They gave him like a 1-star Yelp review. So they just owned it. Right. And I'm like, okay, that dude was having a bad day. And so you got to give some tough love, because the reality is, if you don't charge enough, you can't deliver the service that your customers need, want, and expect, and that you need to deliver to stay in business. You can't just be scraping by.
So I want to dig into that a little more, Wes. Were you focused on gross sales at the time, or, were you looking at profit when you're doing that 10K work for 2K? When did the shift happen from billing out what you're worth and boxing in the deliverables?
A few things happened, some consciously, some unconsciously. Yeah, I just made a post last week. It's like, I've always been terrible at goal setting, but I'm great at anti-goal setting. I'm like, I don't like doing that. So how can I stop doing that? So doing a lot of hands-on client work I didn't like. And so like selling Infusionsoft, I was great at selling it. I was great at teaching it. I was not great at being on call, being on a retainer and maintaining it for you. So I just got great at sales and just ratcheted up sales, built a small team of consultants that I would outsource the onboarding to. So I would do the sale. They would do the onboarding. I would usually hop in on the first call to kind of handle the transition. And then I did a weekly call, kind of like office hours. You see a lot of people doing now, but it was basically office hours to just take questions. Because again, I was good at teaching. And I like teaching. I like helping people. But kind of like being an ER doc, right? Like if I was a doc, I'd probably be an ER doc. Like put me in the mix, whatever is going on, I'll handle it. But then at the end of the day, I need to walk away. I don't want to bring this stuff home with me. And so doing that kind of training and helping people like in the moment, because they'll come in, they're stuck on something. And this, the way my brain works is that kind of rapid fire, give them some ideas, map out a few options, say, all right, you good? Can you handle that? Yes. And they'd be off and running. Because a lot of times in business, I equate it to lifting weights. When you have a spotter, like a good spotter is not lifting the weight for you. You're lifting till exhaustion, right? And so at the end, you're getting your 8, 9, 10 reps in. A good spotter, they're giving, 5 pounds of lift. You got 200 pounds on the bar. And so you don't need them to lift 200 pounds. If they're good, they keep you moving. 1 pound, 2 pounds, 5 pounds of help. You get through the sticking point, and then you don't need them anymore. Right. And that's how most of us are in life, right? We don't need this advisor to do everything. We just need to be that spotter. And so that's what I did, right? I just focused on selling new accounts, helping people in a limited manner, right? Hey, hit me up. Here comes the call each week. Be ready. I'll make myself available. And, that worked great.
So Wes, what I'm hearing, just to recap for our listeners, is that you looked at, instead of trying to do everything, as many small business owners try and do, you looked at what you were good at, right? The sales side of things, looked at what you didn't enjoy doing, which was all the hands-on worrying and implementation work. And you brought in others to fulfill that so you could still offer that deliverable, but it wasn't dependent on you to be doing.
Yep. That was it.
Love it. So you've been in this game a while, and you've mentioned in our conversations, about your business growth playbook and about, your journey as a business owner, that you've used probably all the strategies from the book to get unstuck, which is the idea, right? The reason I created the playbook was so readers can choose the strategies they want to use now, but choosing what to implement first can always be challenging. How did you decide, where to focus your energies on to get unstuck first, since you can't do everything at once?
Perry Marshall talks about the bleeding neck. Right. So you got to triage, like that movie that showed The Pit, right? You get a bunch of people coming in, you triage, who gets treated first. And then out of all their injuries, which one gets treated first? You got this nasty broken leg. That looks terrible, but their neck is bleeding. Let's stop the bleeding neck. So you've got to figure out, well, you don't even have to figure it out, right? Because pain is a universal truth. So if you're in pain, you're going to address the pain, and or it'll kill you, and again, in my own teaching and training, it's like I remind people that it's easier to sell an aspirin than a vitamin, right? So whatever the biggest pain is, go there. And sometimes you don't have a choice. It's just staring you in the face and you got to do it. Sometimes like the pain is just unbearable. And so you got to address it. You got to stop doing it, which helps take the pain away or whatever. And so, and again, through the years, it's, I would spread myself too thin because I would make good money. Then I'd go somewhere else. I brought on partners. I invested in an apartment complex, and we ended up getting audited by the IRS because I trusted a dude. I bought into a franchise. I had no business being a franchise. They messed it up. Got sued again, this time by the California Board of Equalization. So it's just like every time I got in trouble, it's because I thought someone was smarter than me, knew something I didn't, had some secret. And it's like, no, they don't. Invest in yourself, right? So once I just started plowing money back into myself, things got better. Things got consistently better. So just find the bleeding neck, stop that, then work down.
Yeah. So looking back, what did you feel were some of those bleeding necks earlier on that you either stemmed in the business, right? Got some clotting going. And what were the opportunities, like the low hanging fruit, we'd say, that you wanted to pursue first to really get you back to a growth?
I don't go to as many things now, but back in the day, well, hell, I found Infusionsoft because I went to a conference. I went to meet Dan Kennedy. And actually the guy that taught the 12-week class in 2006 had become a Dan Kennedy licensee. So he got me turned on to Dan. So 2 years later, I meet Dan Kennedy, but then I'm exposed to Infusionsoft. Then I invested in Infusionsoft, which was for me. And I bit off more than I could chew. I didn't have a website when I bought Infusionsoft, right? 2008. And I entered the partner program because I saw the potential for residual income. That's why I became a financial advisor back in the day, but I had such a bad experience. It just turned me off to it. But from the beginning, I understood the concept of passive income, stockbroker, and, we could sell annuities and life insurance, sell it once, get paid over and over again. So working with software, with SaaS, gave me that opportunity, gave me the ability to create that residual income. And I remember my wife saying, so you get 20% of a $299 sale. So like $59.50, right? She's like, whoopee. She legit was like not impressed. And then I sold, a few hundred, and those keep coming in. And then plus the setup fees, plus additional consulting. She's like, yeah, keep selling that $60 tool.
Nice. So tell us more about the residual income side. So, you tried that with managing, brokerage accounts. You tried that with apartments, right? You tried that with some other things, and you found the magic in SaaS. So tell us how you built up residual income for the business and what that's done for you.
Well, like Steve had taught me, you got to be a product of the product.
Mm-hmm.
Zig Ziglar talks about that. You gotta become your first customer. You gotta be your best customer, right? So I got this for myself, and I used it, and then I saw, it's like, oh, I can tell people what I'm doing. They click that link, and I get paid. If they buy. So that was just a no-brainer, right? I was just legit excited about the software, and I just made tutorials. I made videos. I made blog posts and emails. And it's just like, you got to use this stuff, and to get paid for just telling the truth, right? It's like, okay, this is cool. And then the fact that it was residual, right? It wasn't like a one-time affiliate fee. It was recurring commission. It was 20%. Then they created tiers. I was platinum plus, whatever. It was 30%, So when you have a couple hundred accounts, 300, 400 accounts, $299, $399, $600 a month, whatever, and you're getting 30% of that, whether you get out of bed or not. It's like, that's exciting, and then I created my own tools, right? Again, I was a product of the product. I would promote the stuff, had a web form, then drip into a drip sequence, a nurture sequence. So now the emails are running 24/7, affiliate links to both Infusionsoft, but then other tools. Back then it was Lead Pages or Bluehost for web hosting. So all these complementary things, right? So I figured out, what does my customer need? Am I selling them? Or it's like, a realtor, you're moving in. It's like, do you need help with a mover? Are you going to do some landscaping? Are you going to build a pool? Do you want the house painted? Do you want new flooring before you want a referral to an interior designer? Yes. Okay. So, so many people like, I don't want to be pushy, whatever. Like, it's not pushy, figure out if they trust you. I don't know, with your optometry, get them some glasses. They may want to refer, like, I got 7 kids. We've used orthodontists. We've used pediatricians. We've used chiropractors, so if I enter the world, of health and wellness through my optometrist, then refer me others, in the field. That's not pushy. That's helpful. That's wise. You become that broker of knowledge, of resources, of introductions, of community. You become this trusted source, and so now when you recommend better glasses or whatever, and contacts, or, they almost feel like they owe you. So that's what I did.
Earlier on, one of the questions I asked you, I sort of teased you with the idea of, was it sleazier sales? Because I know that's one thing you often very much anti-position with, right? Brilliantly so, I should add. So a concept you and I have talked about over the years a lot, and I cover in the book a bit, is this idea of, if you're providing value, right, then that's worth something. And you have an exchange in value, right? And you know that value is clear to your prospect, to your customer, when they're willing to pay for that, right? Not because they were tricked into it, but because they saw the value in what you were offering. Every buying decision you and I make every day as a consumer is because we see value in the thing that we're buying, right? So I love that you touched on that again with this idea of even referrals, right? Or offering something for sale. It's just a matter of, having an opportunity to provide value.
I've got affiliate links all over, I'm wearing this Nimble shirt, right? I know the founder of Nimble. It's a good CRM. It's smaller, lightweight. It's not for everybody, but HubSpot's not for everybody. Keep is not for everybody. So it's like, what do you need?
Yeah.
I'm not just going to sell you, an F-350, diesel dually. Maybe you need a Prius. Okay. As long as you buy from me, we're good,
Yep. So, Wes, you've mentioned to me before that sometimes when you get stuck, it comes down to just digging in and focusing on what needs to get done until it's done. And in business, look, we've all got, things that need to get done, whether we want to or not, taking care of the taxes, as one of the items you mentioned earlier, right? Some things just need to get done, right? Some things might be outside your wheelhouse versus the stuff you love doing. Some move the business forward, some don't. How do you figure out where to focus your energy and what to just get to done so you can move on to the next thing?
Yeah, there's two schools of thought, right? Some say, turn your greatest weakness into your strength. Like, okay, maybe. Yeah, and sometimes you have to do that. But like, I've never done payroll. I don't do my taxes. Fortunately, my wife has a business degree and is very detail oriented, so she's been able to help. But even that, we pay someone to do payroll, and they send us the payroll. And not everything needs to be done by you. Years ago in Fusionsoft, when they were still in the original Gilbert building, they'd hired me to help with some writing, and I came up with the slogan, automate, integrate, dominate. And I've always said, look at what you do 2 or 3 times a day or 4 or 5 times a week and have a process for it at a minimum and automate it if you can. So you got to figure out what needs to be done and doesn't need to be done by you. But I tell everybody that as a business owner, your number one job is to market yourself. And so that doesn't mean you're the one creating the ad campaigns and pasting the Facebook pixel on your websites, but you need to understand all of that, be conversant in it, mainly so people don't lie to you and rip you off. And that's the unfortunate truth. Okay. So you got to dig down and make sure you're at least conversant in everything. Like what's the old adage, whatever you like, your greatest opportunity or whatever is like behind the door or behind the thing you fear most. Right. It's like hiding from something never makes it better. In jiu-jitsu, I always talk about, it's like golf. It's like anything. You're never perfect. Like you're hitting great off the tee, now you can't putt. You nail down your putting, now you can't get out of sand traps. You get out of sand traps and, now you can't fade the ball. So there's always something you got to work on. And so the same thing with jiu-jitsu, I tell guys, they're like, oh, I'm bad at this. Like, then only do that for like 2 months. I'm like, what? Like start every sparring session with you get in that bad position and work your way out of it. You do that every time for 2 months, you'll get good at it. Because, in jiu-jitsu, you don't have a choice, right? That's your fight. It's you versus the other guy. So the fewer weaknesses you have, the better off. But then others will still say, well, if you're really so good at one thing, okay, true. But I mean, these are guys that are learning, so it's like get competent in everything and then figure out where you can get great and then, fine. But until then, do everything you can to master each aspect of the game, so.
Yeah, it's funny. One of my mentors talks about this. He has a great framing that I love is he says, I get to wake up each morning and play this great game of business. And there's a really key word in there, right? Or two, it's playing this game of business. So it's like, you don't win, you don't learn at all. You're not done, right? With each new level of success, there's,
right.
You unlock new doors you didn't know were there with new challenges. So it's not about not having those challenges. It's about seeing those new weaknesses and, and moving forward despite that. So, like you do every day, right? You bring it right back out to the mat.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not because you win every single session. You learn
Mm-hmm.
every single session.
You do learn. And that's why most people don't do it. I mean, it's humbling, jiu-jitsu, it's a humbling sport. And, but business is humbling, all these guys get hit in the teeth, Warren Buffett gets kicked, Elon Musk, Mark Cuban. I mean, not everything goes perfectly. Obviously, you get so big, those losses, you don't necessarily feel as bad, but they've taken their shots, and
They still show up.
yeah, most people, like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get hit in the face,
Right?
So most people have never been hit in the face.
I have been. It's not fun. Yeah, I was one of my earlier matches in the ring. No joke, straight out of a movie. The guy I'm with, throws one glove up in the air. I look up, and so never made that mistake again.
Mm-hmm, there you go.
Never fall that cliff again. Okay. You learn quick. All right. So when you're implementing and putting in the residual income, into the business through, being a referral partner and affiliate with different SaaS platforms. I know that first one, your wife looked at you like you're crazy, a little skeptical and all. Beyond that, what were some of the other challenges that you faced in, building up the residual income part of the business?
Well, when you're getting started, I learned this from Dan Kennedy, but it's so true. He's like, I don't know how to get you 30 leads. He says, but I know 30 ways to get you one. So early on, I was cold calling and inviting people to a workshop I'd put on every 3 weeks. And then, I was still creating content. I was making tutorials and throwing them on YouTube. I was writing emails. I'd go to conferences, I'd get a booth, sponsored chamber of commerce function. So just doing everything that I could, right? And just tirelessly hitting all of those. Because, back then, social media, it wasn't what it is now. So you didn't, and like I said, early on, I didn't even have a website and didn't have a merchant account. I would do these events and have people bring me a check, to the workshop. And I would print these 1/3 size flyers and 1/3 so the reduced cost. And I had a local printer, and then I would print them and have them cut them, because you didn't need a whole flyer. I just needed just the info. So I'd go to these chamber of commerce functions, handing things out, so it was like kiss a bunch of frogs, figure out what works, and figure out what doesn't, stop doing what doesn't, and double down on what does. Then rinse, wash, and repeat. There was no magic.
So Wes, I want to dig into that iterative process a little more. One of the things you and I both love doing is looking at funnels, right? And testing and implementing and then seeing what works. And I think there's a few things that we both see with business owners that are sort of common mindsets, right? One is this false idea that there's a silver bullet. There's one lead source that when you crack that code, forget everything else, that's where all the business is coming from, versus what you said, 30 ways to get the one lead, right? And then the second is this idea that once you figured it out, you're done. And the markers aren't going to move, the goalposts aren't going to get moved. Damn it, I used a football reference. I promised I wouldn't, right? But that, the goalposts are going to move on you, right? So you're a funnel guy. How do you look at your funnels and measure what's working, what's not, what to stop doing, what to do more of? What's your process like?
I have greatly simplified my process over the years. But over the years, it was a lot more complex. And with digital marketing, it's a lot clearer. Right? I think it was John Wanamaker. He had, I think it was Woolworth back in the day. He said, I know that 50% of my marketing is wasted. I just don't know which 50%. So it's a lot clearer now. You can see who's clicking and where. But it's still kind of tough. Have you heard of Alex Becker?
Mm.
He's super successful. His software, Hyros, Hyros, and it does digital attribution because sometimes it is hard to track. Well, just like with Infusionsoft, right? Do you give the sale to whoever clicked the link first or last?
Yeah.
And the argument can be made for both. And so, because maybe I saw your ad somewhere else, but I didn't click it. But then I see it on Reddit or wherever. Now I'm on Facebook, and then later on I follow you on Instagram and I click there. Well, so figuring out the attribution is important. And I think a lot of people still don't get it right. But my point is, we can put too much emphasis on the digital, on the ones and the zeros, and forget the subjective. I always say we must deliver a powerful message in a powerful manner. We don't want to convince 100 people 10% of the way. I want 10 people converted, convinced 100% of the way. So are you remembering that there's a human being on the other end of the screen? So as you start building content, because here's the real risk. 15 years ago, 18 years ago, everyone was hiring VAs. Your VA was creating your content and posting it. My VA was liking it or deleting it, so who really won, right? The VAs. Well, now it's AI, I get all these messages. Would you like, I'll make 30 days of social media posts for you for free. Will you want to give it a try? It's like, bruh, I got the same tools, and so are you making stuff that's persuasive or just noisy? So as you try to figure out what is working today, you're going to be tempted to use AI tools. And I love these AI tools, just like I love marketing automation tools. But you still have to put some humanity into the process, right? I still write, physical notes and mail them to people. And I'm telling you what, that has 1,000 times more effect than anything else. Nobody does that anymore. So everybody says, I zig when the market zags. I'm outside. I don't think outside the box. There's not even a box around me. And here they are doing the exact thing everybody else is doing. Same ad, same. I got to have an Instagram carousel. I got to have Canva make a 10 reel image carousel. How's that working out for you?
I love that you picked up those letters, Wes. One of the strategies that I talk about in the book is direct mail, right? And I don't want to say what's old is new, but like it never stopped working. And yet so many business owners pass it by, right? Looking at the cost, looking at not knowing how to do it, even though it still does work. And the businesses that do it every day are doing it for a reason. It works.
Yeah, nobody wants to dabble. So like my cousin just hired me, and he's an introvert. He's an ops guy. And so I'm giving him some ideas. And so I don't want to tell too much, but the first one he called with my recommendation did what I recommended. And then the second one did. So those are both on Friday. And then this morning, I'm like, go get some video testimonials. Okay, Matt, look, we can get one this week. He texted me this morning. Asked for one, got one. I'm like, so all right, you already got one. So there's your whole week. Like, okay, go get 10.
Yep.
I'm like, come on, man. He's got like 440 happy customers local to his city. I'm like, bruh. So it's like, you got to branch out, because I'm giving him all these ideas and it's stretching his brain. He's like, I'm so uncomfortable with this. I'm like, dude, you've been doing what you've been comfortable with. How has that worked out? You're not coming to me for me to tell you to keep doing what you've already been doing. Keep your money, right? If that's what's happening, you're coming to me to give you some idea. And again, I'm giving you 30 ideas to get one customer, 30 different ways to get one customer. And then now you'll figure out, let's have a combination of effective and comfort. Like, I don't want you totally freaking out all day, every day for the rest of your life, right? But as you do new things, you get more comfortable, right? And Zig Ziglar talks about that. He had a woman that was his assistant. He was kind of like a pampered chef salesman back in the day, right? He was selling cookware. And so this woman would help. So they would literally cook in your home. So you'd invite all your friends. So she would help set up, she would help clean up while he's doing the clothes. And she says, I'll do that. Never, don't ever make me sell anything. And something happened. He got like double booked, and he was like, I'm sorry. She's like, I would quit on you right now. I can't believe you made me do it. I will do it. But if you ever do this again, I will quit. Blah, blah, blah. He's like so nervous. And he calls her at the end of the night. How'd it go? He's like, you couldn't shut her up. this was fantastic. Like everybody bought. And then she went on to become like the VP of sales, like for the whole company. And then like this industry leader, because she branched out.
Yeah.
Right.
So much growth happens
like
outside
my cousin was a Marine. He can, like, dude, why are you afraid of talking to a customer who loves what you do? Come on, man. He's nervous to give a talk. So like, I'm like, I'll help you write the talk. Like, he's a member of Rotary. Like, go give a 10-minute talk on business and leadership, right? Like, I'm not telling you to sell anybody. Just become visible. Become this beacon of the community where he has lived his entire life, and his family business is 28 years old. His dad started, he's running. I'm like, just be pleasant, be visible, be present. I'm like, yeah, they'll refer business to you. So like, he's getting there, but Brand, we've been doing this for like not even 2 weeks. So he's getting there.
Nice. One step at a time. And we sometimes need that nudge from outside the circle to expand that circle. So Wes, you've helped thousands of business owners achieve growth. And I mean, even you yourself have built a business with a substantial amount of residual monthly income, letting you take care of the kiddos, the grandkiddos, the family, all of it. And I love that. Can you share, like, as you implemented the residual income strategies in the business, how did that help on the gross sales and or on the profit side compared to other stuff you're doing before?
Well, the residual, when you've got your bills covered, whether you get out of bed or not, it's empowering. It's when, my dad always says, if you think you're desperate, you are. Okay. So if you're running around anxious and desperate, it compounds in a negative, this downward spiral. So success begets success, so as those wins start to compound, now some people can do stupid stuff and waste it, but having a wife that has been home for 30 years and 7 kids, like, it's funny, like I'm money motivated, but it's like only because it's how you keep score. But like, I hardly spend any money, my wife does all the books and everything. I'm like, do whatever, I'll buy a new jiu-jitsu gi. I'm going on a trip in a couple of weeks back to the academy for a football game. So I'll do little things, but like, I'm not wasting it. I'm not. So it's just, but it's empowering to know. It's like, do what you want when you want, within reason, but we've always had that rainy day fund. We've always set money aside, and my wife has set different account. We literally have a summer vacation account. We fill that thing up. She makes the plans. We go. There's no guilt. There's no confusion. There's no doubt. And we build those memories. Our kids look forward to it. Even our married kids, they all come out for, so we can't get enough rooms for everybody and the in-laws but they rotate through. Throughout the week. They'll come for the day. Some will spend the night, then others will spend the night. So, but it's close. Everybody's within an hour.
Yeah.
So that's easy. But, when my oldest graduated high school, heck, that was 2015. I took all 9 of us to Hawaii for, 9 days. So we've done some big trips, but it's just comforting. It's reassuring, but you got to be careful too, like not to get comfortable, because I've had dips since then. And because things changed, Infusionsoft didn't keep up. They got bought out. They changed their partner program. HubSpot changed their partner program. Boom, there goes 40 grand in recurring income ripped away from me. I stopped selling and leading with Infusionsoft. So those residuals went down. So it's like, I've had to pivot. I'm still pivoting. But, I'm doing it from knowledge and experience and connections. The things I sell now, December 30th, I did a deal, like 180 grand, so I'm having the same discussions, but different. Right. So it was actually, we sold HubSpot, right? They had outgrown Infusionsoft and I didn't try to steer them away. They came to me. We looked at everything. Like they had 4 Infusionsoft accounts. They had a service thing and they had 5-6 different accounts we were able to put into one. It's like, okay, this does make sense for you. So I'm doing the same stuff, just a little bigger scale now.
Love it. Before we wrap, just a few sort of quick rapid fire questions for you, on some of this. So one, especially with the recurring revenue component of this, churn is a big deal, right? And no matter what you do, you'll never eliminate churn, right? But what are some of the strategies that you've used to reduce churn and keep those, those recurring revenue customers longer?
So you stay in touch, right? So have a private group where you can chat. I've got a mobile app. I engage with people. I have a regular email that I send out. I have physical mail. When they join, depending on what they buy, I've mailed them something physical. They get my book. I've got a challenge coin, so I send different things, my sales training flashcards. So physical mail still works. So stay in touch. I'll connect with them wherever they are on social media, Instagram, X, LinkedIn. So the more personable and present you can be, it helps deepen that relationship and they'll stay longer.
Nice. So based on, your experience, you've been at this a while, what's one piece of advice that you'd give a business owner who feels stuck or like they're facing a plateau in their business and they just can't get back to growth?
Buy something. Buy your book, buy an hour with you, buy an hour with me, join my 12 weeks to peak. Do something, invest in yourself, stop kissing a bunch of frogs. You don't need another free report. You don't need another, 13-step checklist that you're not going to read. Get my 1,001 AI prompts guaranteed to help you master AI. BS. You ain't going to read it. You're not going to do it, And so if you're stuck, if you're declining, investing in a good coach or advisor, it's the single biggest thing. That's what always turned my stuff around. Going back early, like 2002, I invested my first time ever paying a coach. This was a real estate coach. Paid him $500 for some guidance, and then by 2006, I invested with Steve Clark for 10 grand to become a licensee of his and have unlimited access. So, find somebody that'll hold your feet to the fire and pay them to push you.
I would echo that. I faced the exact same challenge and found that to be the same solution as well. So,
yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
So for our listeners to recap, you've gotten stuck many times over the years, but each time you broke through by focusing on the one thing that needed to get done and getting it fully implemented. Specifically, one of the big strategies is adding on the recurring revenue streams. As an affiliate partner. So shifting you from like more outbound sales to more inbound selling funnels and really increasing the customer lifetime value.
Yep.
So for our listeners who want to learn more about you, Wes, where should they go right now?
The saleswhisperer.com is my home. I'm using Substack now. That's been a pivot for me. So I've got a couple of channels there I'm really enjoying but you can, from there, everything links out. All my social media, you can find me. You can just link to my calendar if you want to talk, do a free consultation if you want to kick things off. But you can subscribe for free and kind of see my tone, my approach, see if it resonates with you. If it does and you need some help, reach out.
Love it. Wes, thank you so much. And we'll have all that in the show notes. But for our folks listening, that you can find Wes over at thesaleswhisperer.com. Wes, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.